Good afternoon and welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Let me start with my article that I wrote of a Sunday morning actually, and I headlined it, "The End is Nigh." The United Nations General Assembly, UNGA, is a set-piece event that I always look forward to with a level of desire which always catches me a little off guard. UNGA is one of the few platforms where William S. Burroughs' edict, "Smash the control images, smash the control machine," applies. And just about everyone gets their Warholian moment. Andy Warhol, of course, said in the future everyone will be world famous for 15 minutes. Fortunately, this year we were able to skip Bibi Netanyahu's dog and pony show because he had other things to focus on, like trying to cobble together a government. And I'm sure the entire world breathed a collective sigh of relief. The 16-year-old environmental activist Greta Thunberg, who of course set the tone with her powerful intervention. "You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering, people are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?" Of course, the "how dare you" resonated with me because it is, as Ryszard Kapuscinski wrote, it is authority that provokes revolution. President Bolsonaro pronounced, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free," and spoke of trails of death and destruction, ideologically infected human souls, and biologically perverted children, which I will just leave out there because his intervention, in fact, left me speechless. Boris Johnson spoke of smart cities which will pullulate with sensors all joined together by the Internet of Things, bollards communing invisibly with lampposts, and asked, "How do you plead with an algorithm?" President Rouhani skipped a handshake with President Trump and instead delivered his message direct via Fox News, which was a very neat touch. President Trump evidently found it a little overwhelming and had his security detail block a 16-year-old girl, and then did a J. Alfred Prufrock and like a patient etherized upon a table impression. Imran Khan delivered a speech which was as effective as the reverse swing with which he used to bamboozle the world's best batsman, and this time he bowled Prime Minister Modi all ends up. T.S. Eliot wrote another poem captioned "The Hollow Men," which starts, "Mr. Kurtz, he dead." Between the idea and the reality, between the motion and the act, falls the shadow. Now let's turn to the markets. Of course, Greta was referencing the feedback loop and the risks of dieback, where we enter a phase of cascading system collapse precisely because of the negative spillover effects of the hydrocarbon century. So let me turn to the Houthis, who 2 weekends ago struck deep inside the kingdom with a swarm of drones, and are now reporting that they attacked the Saudi front line and have captured thousands of enemy troops, including many officers and soldiers of the Saudi army, as well as hundreds of armored vehicles. Operation Victory from God is the largest military one since the brutal aggression began. The enemy suffered heavy losses, and wide swathes of territory were liberated in only a few days. Houthi spokesman Mohammed Abdul Salam tweeted, 3 Saudi brigades fell into the hands of Yemen's Houthi fighters in Najran, South Saudi Arabia. Saudi propaganda was effective in bringing the price of oil right back down after a 20% surge 2 weeks ago. But a reprice higher is coming, and this time it's not going to ebb. No number of Patriot missile batteries can protect the House of Saud and its Salvatore Mundi now. The enemy is no longer at the border, it's on the inside. Buy oil. The dollar has been girding its loins all year and is set to explode. Buy the dollar. Safe havens like gold and the new 21st century safe haven Bitcoin, however, are trading like everybody is long and are very crowded and look set to deteriorate. Bitcoin could in fact fall as far as $1,000, where it was in January 2017 when I recommended it. President Xi will have to let the renminbi go, so sell the renminbi. They will hold it steady this week because the CCP is celebrating 70 years of the People's Republic. But when the party is over, it will be an almighty hangover. And you can also sell sterling because the United Kingdom is crashing out of Europe. And the euro as well, where parity is calling. This was a chart from a couple of days back, Offshore Yuan reaction as the White House weighed limits on US portfolio flows into China and listing of Chinese companies in the US. But currently we're at 71350. I wrote about the Chinese renminbi 13th of August. I spoke about the feedback loop phenomenon, and I said the most important currency to watch right now is the renminbi. Boris Johnson, backed by speculators who have bet billions on hard Brexit, and there is only one outcome that works for them. A crash-out, no-deal Brexit that sends the currency tumbling and inflation soaring. This was an article in the Times by Philip Hammond. This is a sterling chart by FX Pip Titan. We're currently at 123.05. We popped back above 123. And on the 5th of August, I asked, the key question is this: can Boris Johnson self-eject Britain? I think he can. Can he be stopped? I don't think it looks like he can be. And I said, this is a political calculation. Matthew Dancona tweeted yesterday, Claxon elephant trap warning. If the S&P tables a vote of no confidence this week, as Johnson has allowed minority opposition parties to do, it will be doing exactly to the letter what he is hoping for. As Johnson hinted heavily to Andrew Marr, he could easily whip his own party tactically to vote against the government in such a vote. The bizarre coalition of Tory, DUP and SNP votes would get the total over 323, a simple majority. Here's another sterling chart from FX Pip Titan, and as we said, we're currently at 123.04. Michel Barnier says Johnson's behaviour has limited the chance of a Brexit deal. There is now concern that the government is seeking simply to ramp up a blame game, and with the chances of an agreement now seen as being very low. My article was written on the 5th of August, And I asked then, as I watched the pound fall like a stone, I could not help wondering if this sterling moment is precisely like it was in 1992, a no-brainer. And that took me to Andrew Mellon, who said, liquidate labour, liquidate stocks, liquidate the farmers, it will purge the rottenness out of the system. And I'm not suggesting we're headed into Mellon doctrine territory. However, I think, like Schumpeter said, don't try to hasten the recovery, because artificial stimulus leaves part of the work of depressions undone. And I think that point remains an overarching one. 1st of April, I was saying there's certainly a fin de siècle, even apocalyptic mood afoot. The end is nigh and all that. But I said the conundrum for those who wish to bet on the end of the world is this, however. What would be the point the world would have ended? And you're seeing these safe havens come off the boil a little of late. This is William Burroughs, Smash the Control Images, Smash the Control Machine. This is Andy Warhol. In the future, everyone will be world famous for 15 minutes. Home thoughts, they always say time changes things, but you actually have to change them yourself, Andy Warhol. I like this photograph of the white desert in Namibia. And then I was, of course, quoting Greta, how dare you, you have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words. The poem, The Hollow Men, Mr. Kurtz, he dead, a penny for the old guy. Here we go round the prickly pear, prickly pear, prickly pear. Here we go round the prickly pear at 5 o'clock in the morning. Between the idea and the reality, between the motion and the act, falls the shadow, for thine is the kingdom. Between the conception and the creation, between the emotion and the response, falls the shadow. Life is very long. Between the desire and the spasm, between the potency and the existence, between the essence and the descent, falls the shadow. For thine is the kingdom, for thine is life, is for thine is the. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but with a whimper. Very interesting article. Recommendation algorithms are some of the most powerful machine learning systems today because of their ability to shape the information we consume, which was what Boris was talking about. Tends to reward the most extreme and controversial videos, which studies have shown can quickly push people into deep rabbit holes of content and lead to political radicalization. And apparently YouTube are tinkering with their algorithm. They said that it increases the watch time by 0.24%. If you compute the amount, I think that's maybe tens of millions of dollars. The tree that tells you that you're in Samburu land. This photo is by Lucas Chan via Kenya Pics. This is a photo I took of elephants crossing the Ewaso-Nyiro River in the Samburu. This is another photograph I took of flowers on the way to Saruni camp, which was where we stayed on our last visit. Going back to Warhol's 15 minutes, and I was writing about this before, and I said in a world of 7 billion souls, the fat tail, those people prepared to act for their Warholian moment of fame, is quite a number. And here's an Andy Warhol pastiche of Chairman Mao on the occasion of the 70th anniversary of the CCP. Political reflections. China's leaders, including President Xi Jinping, are seen arriving at Tiananmen Square on the eve of the 70th National Day. That's via TikTok. Yemen's Houthis say they attacked the Saudi border front line. This was several reports I've read, captured many troops and vehicles. Operation Victory from God, largest military one. Apparently, enemy suffered heavy losses. Wide swathes of territory were liberated in only a few days, the Houthi spokesman Mohammed Abdul Salam tweeted. Narebi, who I'm following, who is a journalist, 3 Saudi brigades fell into the hands of Yemen's Houthi fighters in Najran. And have a click on that link. He says the operation is the biggest ever. November 2017, I said the then 30-year-old Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, arrived on the scene and immediately launched an unwinnable war in the Yemen. And the evidence of it being unwinnable is now coming to the fore. He said it will be a cakewalk. Over in a week, he said, they will be throwing rose petals at our feet, he said. And it is clear now that the Yemen war has become Saudi Arabia's Vietnam, which was something that John Kemp Energy said. He said the kingdom has thrown everything into the conflict but failed to achieve a decisive military advantage and favourable political endgame. More worrying for the kingdom is the second scenario, in my view. This is on the occasion of the drone attacks, where those drones might have been launched from within the kingdom, and that would signal that the Houthis might well have teamed up with the Saudi Shia, who represent up to 25% of the population, and have been ground down viciously by the House of Saud, characterized as apostates, and whose leaders have been beheaded and crucified. 16th of September, I was asking, the overwhelming geopolitical question is around the longevity of the House of Saud and its crown prince. Incredibly, yesterday there were massive fire engulfed the train station at Jeddah, which links Mecca and Medina. And Ali Al-Ahmed, who I've begun to follow, said chaos is starting to spread in Saudi Arabia. And we also learned that the king's bodyguard died as well. I take you back to Ryszard Kapuscinski, Shah of Shahs. The Shah lives like a European billionaire. People live in a climate of fear, terrorized by the secret police. Intense power and feeling. Kapuscinski portrays the inevitable build-up to revolution, a cataclysmic upheaval that delivered Iran into the rule of Ayatollah Khomeini. And I'm saying that it feels to me like Saudi Arabia is at a similar moment, a precipitous one, in point of fact. Kapuscinski writes wonderfully, oil creates the illusion of a completely changed life, life without work, life for free. Oil is a resource that anesthetizes thought, blurs vision, corrupts, and it's really tremendous. Has its defects, does not replace thinking or wisdom. For rulers, one of its most alluring qualities is that it strengthens authority. Oil produces great profits without putting a lot of people to work. Oil causes few social problems because it creates neither a numerous proletariat nor a sizable bourgeoisie. Thus, the government, freed from the need of splitting the profits with anyone, can dispose of them according to its own ideas and desires. 16th of September, I wrote the article, Drone Strikes Deep Inside the Kingdom. The overwhelming geopolitical question I asked is around the longevity of the House of Saud and its crown prince. And I said, no amount of paid PR or kind words from Trump can finesse this. And I was discounting Saudi comment, saying it's worthless, irrelevant, and paid for. And I found myself in the crossfire of some of it of late. 23rd of September, and I said, by the way, my conclusion remains, we're at a peacock throne moment for the House of Saud. Houthis have warned Saudi Arabia and the UAE that they are ready to annihilate Saudi and Emirati power grids and desalination plants. This will take their economy back decades. I go back to the quote, if you want peace and security for your facilities and towers made of glass that cannot withstand one drone, then leave Yemen alone. And that came streaming into my consciousness. And this is a photograph of one of those towers of glass, the Dubai Burj Khalifa. Interesting article that I came across for arms dealers doing business in the kingdom. Most visible overhaul to date has been consolidation of control over Saudi weapons purchases and all branches of the armed forces in the hands of MBS himself. Saying this, saying that these THAAD missiles are simply not effective against these drones, but that the system is designed for brokerage fees and so forth. Trump told Russian officials in 2017 he wasn't concerned about Moscow's interference in the US election. White House officials were particularly distressed by Trump's election remarks because it appeared President Trump was forgiving Russia for an attack that had been designed to help elect him. I wrote about this on the 5th of December 2016. We had a deviate tomahawk, and I said the election of Donald Trump, hindsight will surely show that Russia ran a sophisticated program of interference, mostly digital. Then I quoted Don DeLillo, Beppe Grillo, and I was saying from feeding the hothouse conspiracy frenzy online, a constant state of destabilized perception, timely and judicious doses of WikiLeaks leaks, which drained Hillary's bona fides and her turnout and motivated Trump's. What we have witnessed is something remarkable and noteworthy, and I said Putin has proven himself an information master, and his adversaries are his information victims. The frontier, I wrote in another article, from Xinjiang to Kashmir, from Gaza to Crimea, from Hong Kong to Taiwan, are 21st century flashpoints. Have a look at this from Hong Kong. Another arrested man gives his Hong Kong ID number to reporters so that they can identify him later. 19th of August, I said it is not possible to Xinjiang, Hong Kong, I think. Wong, the activist, democracy activist in Hong Kong, said that Hong Kong ist das neue Berlin when he visited Germany. That took me to Ich bin ein Berliner, which was a speech by the United States President John F. Kennedy given on June 26, 1963 in West Berlin. Ed van der Walt, what happened to trade deal any day now? My view remains that even if a trade deal is done, it will be a temporary truce, not worth the paper it's written on, because the direction of travel has been set. And I take you to articles I've previously written, the feedback loop phenomenon. 27th of May, I said the China-US war is going to turn ballistic. 9th of July last year, I asked tariff wars, who blinks first? Let's turn to currency markets. Euro dollar 109.33, dollar index 99.07, Japanese yen 107.86, Swiss franc 0.9905, the pound having popped over 123, back below it 122.99, Australian dollar 0.6750, India rupee 70.5085, South Korean won 12.03, Brazilian real 4.156, Egyptian pound very steady 16.3060, and the rand 15.1345. This is a comparison of the Fed broad weighted dollar index and the DXY, that's from Chigo, As I said in my article, I think the dollar is going to turn explosive to the upside. Euro dollar, this chart is from FX Pit Titan, this is, where are we currently on euro dollar? 109.33. I think we're going lower. Look at this correlation between German Bund yields and the level of the pound. This is from Holger, suggesting ever-changing odds of a no-deal or hard Brexit will influence bond yields in coming weeks. JP Morgan defending Netflix, that's via the market ear. They're saying, we view Netflix's second half content slate as perhaps its best ever and a key driver of the company's ability to achieve its second half paid net ads guide. They are saying that they're expecting, the market's expecting fewer than 5 million international net ads, and they expect us to surpass that. I wrote about this on the 23rd of September, streaming dreams, Netflix, and then I said then Netflix is not a US business, it's a global business. The majority of analysts are in the US, and in my opinion these same analysts have an international blind spot, and that therefore I would put out a conviction buy at $270. We're just a little bit below that now. I did not know that it was Mark Bernays-Randolph, an American tech entrepreneur, advisor speaker, who's the co-founder and first CEO of Netflix. Bernays, the family, very interesting, particularly in PR. Netflix's simple interface hides the incredibly detailed data tracking that goes on. Netflix's biggest asset isn't its library of movies, it's their library of information about you. Real rates are negative everywhere. This is a chart via Bianco Research. Aging population, he says, is creating a massive bid for bonds. Get used to these low rates. Negative real rates are not going away. One result of aging developed world is increase in percentage of savings worldwide, and showing you the trend. Bitcoin, let's have a look where we are on that. 7,800. I went back to, I made it my recommendation at the beginning of 2017. I said my optimal portfolio, long Bitcoin, short gold. We were at $1,000 then. And then we've ramped up all the way. I said get out in November 2017 at around $9,700. And then we went subsequently higher. But the point is that this bear market could take us all the way back to 1,000, and still the chart would remain bullish. So currently 7,800, and I for one think we're headed considerably lower. Commodity markets, gold, as I said in my article, they feel heavy, trading just below 1,490 as I speak. 23rd of September, after the drone attacks into the kingdom, I was saying big price spike, then retracement. We've come all the way back to where we started in point of fact, and I think therefore it's a very big buy because of the geopolitical scenario that's developing, particularly in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Marketeer, this is a chart from them. We have not seen 3 hammer candles in a row in a long time, they say. So that's the chart that I've drawn on. Fitch warned in August that the formula in Lebanon would not hold. They've downgraded Lebanon from B- to a distressed grade of CCC, and this is around hard currency shortages. African Eurobonds Q3 update from Gregory L.B. Smith. $109.1 billion of African sovereign Eurobond issuance growing rapidly. 21 African countries have issued sovereign Eurobonds in dollars and euros with maturities up to 30 years. Q3 saw sovereign Eurobond issuance from Tunisia and South Africa, Egypt, Benin, Kenya and Ghana issued in the first half of 2019. 2019 issuance to date is $17.7 billion. And then talking about South Africa, who issued 30-year paper with a coupon of 5.75% versus a 6.3% coupon on their issue in May 2018. African Eurobonds performed very well in the first half of 2019, almost across the board. Favorable factors were 2 25 basis point rate cuts by the Fed, and the fact that the yield on 10-year US Treasuries ended the quarter at around 1.7%, down from just over 2% at the start. But we've had a collapse of Argentine Eurobond prices in August, hurt investors, led to some contagion effects hitting sentiment for African Eurobonds, especially those with long duration. Average cost of African Eurobond borrowing remained static in quarter three. At the end of quarter three, average yields of African Eurobonds were approximately 6.1%. So that's interesting. In the first half of 2019, average yields fell 150 basis points. Average additional premium gain for investing in African Eurobonds above assets deemed to be safer US bonds increased, so the spread has come out by 50 basis points, which is something to keep an eye on. It's now 490 over, whereas previously we were 440 over. Rwanda performed best in quarter three. Ethiopia fairly flat, although Moody's shifted outlook on their B1 rating to negative. Zambia continues to stand out in the Africa space with the weakest trading Eurobonds. Each of their 3 Eurobonds are priced around 70 US cents on the dollar, as investors see an increasing risk of default and fear they will not be repaid in full. Zambia's credit rating was downgraded by S&P from B- to CCC+. But we've spoken about that already. Mozambique is targeting $880 million in tax from the Anadarko takeover. That's interesting. This is a photograph of a Maputo evening that I took. South African all shares up 4.69% year to date. Dollar rand last trading at 15.12. And we're in a 1450 range. Egyptian pound last at 16.30. The Nigerian all-share down 11.95% in 2019. Ghana Stock Exchange down 11.59% in 2019. The US State Department said on Friday in an updated travel advisory that it cited reports of a probable Ebola-related death in Dar es Salaam. According to Drum Chronicles, the Tanzanian family of the doctor that died of Ebola-like symptoms in Dar es Salaam is missing. They were initially told that she died of Ebola. This was later changed. They were not able to witness the burial. They had been put under 30-day quarantine and now moved to an undisclosed location. As I've written about Ebola before, I said it's about its escape velocity. It exhibits non-linear and exponential characteristics. Emerson Mnangagwa, who was eulogizing Mugabe as a revolutionary icon, has failed and is frankly as untenable, in my opinion, as his erstwhile mentor. Pastor Evan said there can be no mixed feelings, misconceptions or complications about Robert Mugabe's legacy. He presided over the destruction of millions of people's lives over a span of 37 years. Have a look at this. Sums up what's gone awry with post-Mugabe Zimbabwe's search for international re-engagement. It's from a statement by Clement Voulet, the UN Special Rapporteur. The NE CEO has been searched. He's under investigation over dealings in the Republic of Congo. And this is from Sadiq Shaban. This is the Congo President Sassou Nguesso arriving for a national event. Do watch it. Kenya will build 2 solar plants in a $147 million deal that can power about 300,000 homes. Interesting article in the AFP about demonetization. Man pays for Mercedes-Benz in 1,000 shilling notes as Kenyans rush to swap old banknotes ahead of the ban. And according to the latest reports, $1 billion equivalent of Kenyan 1,000 shilling notes have been extinguished, but we'll know the real numbers later. One bar in Mombasa is offering to swap banknotes on behalf of drinkers, encouraging punters to spend big at their old note send-off party being held on the eve of demonetization. Sportspesa halting operations due to the tax hike, saying that disappointed by the move, stop its operations until a non-hostile regulatory environment has been returned. This is the 2018 Eurobond issues, the 10 years at 6.6%, the 30 years at 8%. 2019 issue, 7-year Eurobond at 6.4%, 12-year at 7.5%. This is a chart of a long-term chart of the Kenyan shilling. As long as we stay below 105.50, it's okay. But if we break above that, then we're in uncharted territory. NSE is trading on a P/E ratio of 10.9, dividend yield of 5.5. Nairobi all shares up 2.73%. NSE 20 is down 14.04%. This is Kenya private sector credit growth via Cyton. And then there's some data on KCB, price earnings ratio of 5.3, total assets 861 billion, Equity Bank, price earnings 7.229, total assets 638.7 billion. The combined NIC and CBA will have total assets of 476.1 billion. Co-op Bank has total assets of 429.6 billion, trades on a P/E ratio of 5.413. Thank you for stopping by.